Jude Law should fire his agent. uh, Welcome. If that doesn't tell you where this review's headed, then I don't really know what else will. This is Peter Pan and Wendy, and it's available on Disney Plus, and it has audio description. And let's talk about that for a second. So, obviously, there have been tons of Peter Pan movies over the years, right? All the way back. I don't even know if Disney's Peter Pan was the first Peter Pan movie. I don't know that there wasn't some black and white version of Peter Pan. I mean, J.M. Barrie's version, his book had been around, so there might be something historically back there. I don't know. I don't know the history of Peter Pan in film. I just feel like I've seen quite a few Peter Pan films over the years. And obviously, as a kid growing up, yes, I saw the Peter Pan film a lot. I love the ride at Disney, and yes, it's very fun. And I love taking trips to Neverland cinematically in general. Most of the time, I take them through Hook. I'm a big fan of Hook. So if that causes you to just delete me and click on this video, I can't hide it. I love Hook. I grew up with Hook. I think Hook is one of the reasons we say, don't just keep telling the same story over and over. Tell a new story. Tell a different story. Well, Spielberg did that. He told the story of the boy who never growing up. Coming back and trying to rescue his kids. It had a fantastic cast with Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman. It had practical sets. If you're part of the blind community and you have never actually seen Hook, you don't know how fucking beautiful it was to see those actual sets, to see that they were actually made in a world where everything is just so CG and so everything just feels so fake now, and it feels like paintings, sometimes. Like, there's no realness to a lot of this stuff. Seeing Spielberg's set where people were clearly walking around, and the Lost Boys and their area was clearly fully functional, and there was a pirate ship that you could walk on, and there was like this little pirate village that you could walk through, and everything just was so fully realized and captured. And that was what made it an expensive film at the time. That's why people don't like to do practical effects, is because they're expensive, but they pay off. They look great. And Hook holds up because of it. At least I continue to watch Hook throughout my life, and all the way up until I lost my vision. At least the last time I saw Hook, I was never like, oh, this film has not aged well. I was like, oh man, these practical sets still look fantastic. So there's that. And we had some other adaptations. We had the Peter Pan version in the early 2000s with Jason Isaacs playing Captain Hook. We've had Pan with Hugh Jackman in it. We've had... They even made a sequel to the animated Peter Pan called Return to Neverland in the early 2000s. And I don't know. I just feel like we've seen Peter Pan quite a bit, maybe. And Disney is doing it again. And that's pretty much all you need to know is I feel like Disney just asked somebody and told somebody, we haven't done a Peter Pan movie in a while, write one. And somebody just wrote one, and then they just made a movie. They didn't care. They were just like, oh, it's Peter Pan. Oh, whatever. Just got it. I haven't seen a single review about this, so I have no idea where critics are landing on this, and I don't really care, because this is where I land on this film. I kind of felt like the whole film was pointless. I don't know. It feels like it doesn't really care, like that it in its own existence. It feels like it's just sort of beat by beat by beat, trying to capture magic that it can't capture, magic that's out of its reach, magic that was in a book a long time ago, and that this filmmaker, who I probably should look up just so I can avoid what other films they're going to make later on down the line, he just doesn't understand. None of this works. It all feels very flat. It all feels very repetitive. It feels almost like community theater in terms of the level of Peter Pan we're getting. Like, it feels, I I understand why this didn't go to theaters, which is why I said Law should fire his uh, his agent, because he shouldn't be in this film. He's arguably the best thing about the film. I don't think the child actors did a bad job. It's just the material that they're given is just so derivative. It feels like, there are Peter Pan plays that are done all the time. Uh, I mean, this thing's been adapted all over the place. You got Finding Neverland. There's a Peter Pan musical. There definitely are stage adaptations for kids in which nobody sings. So it just feels like another thing that somebody was like, oh, let's tell the Peter Pan story again, but we'll write our own dialogue. And that's kind of really what happened, except this is by Disney, so they get to kind of, in the score, reference the original music. So, and they don't sing things like You Can Fly. Instead, it's sort of woven into the film's score. Sort of creatively, it's one of the better things about the film is that instead of it being a direct carbon copy remake of the cartoon, it's more of an homage to that specific film. There are songs within this that don't really feel like songs. They're just little moments where people sing. They're not full out musical numbers. It's kind of hard to explain that, but if you do choose to see the film, I think you'll be like, yeah, I get what he's saying there. It doesn't feel like a musical number to me, but it's singing, so feels a little bit more like the Peter and the Starcatcher route of how that had singing, but it wasn't really a musical. If you're familiar, I keep naming things that are Peter Pan adaptations. This is how bad this is. Wendy's a little bit stronger in this than usual. She's a little bit more. I'm sure people are going to call her woke. They're going to be like, "This is a woke Wendy," because she's like a strong female lead, and it's just, oh god, she's not that strong. She's always been a little headstrong, and that's always been Wendy's thing. She's never just like some quiet wallflower. she's up for adventure. That's why she follows Peter Pan in the first place. But yeah, this film just doesn't go anywhere. The only cool thing that this film does is it introduces a very interesting backstory for Hook, one that we haven't really talked about in films before. I feel like Pan tried to do that. They tried to show you who Hook was before. It's not the same. This is not the same backstory. But that story I would have liked to see. That story. Not this story. But the story that they talk about in this film. The story that we don't get to see in a feature length. That is the story I would have loved to see. However, it would have made their titular hero an asshole. Because when they give, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but when they give you the reasoning for Hook, he becomes actually somewhat a sympathetic character. When you actually learn why things are the way they are in this version of Peter Pan and Neverland. I think it's hilarious that the stories, that the books and everything are directly referenced, and that Mother Darling, I don't know what her first name is, Wendy, Michael, and John's mother reads them stories about Peter Pan, and then Peter Pan shows up and he's like, oh, I like it when people read my stories. I'm just like, I think that's hilarious. Like who's the person? Because somebody then has to know about Peter Pan. So, if we're supposed to accept, because there's no way you can't accept the ending of the film without accepting the fact that Neverland is real. So you can't say that it's like some sort of fever dream that the kids have, where they all like have some sort of imagination, because otherwise the ending to this film doesn't work. So Peter Pan has to be real, and so who's the person? Who's the novelist that? Because they don't talk about that person. They don't talk about the person who. Oh yeah, we had this guy, and he was here for a while, and then he left, and I think he's been writing stories about us and putting them into books. It's just like somehow people know about Neverland. They never really tackled that part of it. They never really tackled the. Wait a minute. So how are there stories about Neverland? Anyway, yeah. So this is it's just it's got some moments where it likes to pay homage to the cartoon. I remember visually is even seeing from the old cartoon. There's a moment where Hook is trying to not be eaten by the crocodile, and he has his legs sort of spread open on top of each one of the mouths of the crocodile. Like the crocodile has his mouth open, it's sort of like the V formation one way. Meanwhile, Hook has a leg on either side of the mouth. They recreate that image here, and it's actually brought into the audio description, which I guess I can talk about now. I mean, this film is aimed at kids, and I felt like the audio description was really well set up for kids. I suppose my biggest problem with the audio description is the fact that we have gone out of our way to colorblind this movie, which is really unfortunate because a lot of the Peter Pans that I've seen more recently have not been white people. And Disney's original animated work focused heavily on, everybody was white. Everybody just appeared and they just showed up, and the Darlings were white, and the Lost Boys were white, and Peter Pan was white, and Captain Hook was white, and all the pirates are white, and everybody's white. So, the perception here is that if you choose to not describe any of it, then any sort of diversity or inclusivity that you've chosen to do gets lost, and there's never really race described for anybody, which is even more problematic because I don't know what they did with Tiger Lily, who speaks in a native tongue in this film. Are we going to continuously keep throwing white actresses into Tiger Lily, or did we finally find somebody who's indigenous in nature playing the role? I have no idea, because there's nothing about this audio description that would let you know anything about any of these characters. They're all very surface described. Peter is actually really shittily described, to be totally honest. He just kind of shows up, and we don't really get a full-on description of him based on his entrance. So the way that he enters kind of makes it harder for him to be described, and almost like you have to pick up on it like later on. You have to like describe him after he's been introduced, but like slowly, while also describing further action in the film. He doesn't really leave himself like the greatest entrance in the world to be able to be described. So, I didn't love this audio description. I mean, I think it's fine for kids, and I think for kids, it feels like the right voice, it feels like the right tone. But if we're looking for representation, it feels like we're all trying to just default. The problem with defaulting is almost everybody always just kind of assumes that they're white, and especially in a franchise that has leaned so heavily that way before. If all of your previous interactions with Peter Pan have just been predominantly white casts, then there's no reason to suggest that this was any different. Even though this film could feature an incredibly diverse cast, there's no reason the pirates can't be of many races. You know, Steven Spielberg's Hook, those Lost Boys, even back in 1990, were, you know, they were all over the place. I don't know how else to say that, but everybody was represented in that culture. I mean, they all looked completely different, and they all had their own unique personalities. Even the fact that Rufio, who was the current reigning Pan, was a person of color, was, I mean, that was the 90s. You know, I mean, we already did it back then. And so now we've got this new film, and it just kind of, to not celebrate that and to just kind of be like, whatever. We got some kids. And the Lost Boys in general are not really described. There's one, at least one who was like, he's wearing an animal costume. And I'm like, okay, so we got one. How many more? Oh, how many more are there? Do they have names? Do they have, nope, we're just going to group them together, and they don't really, you know, they'll just be as a group instead of really trying to create individual characters, which the film, to its credit, it's not really an audio description problem. It's also a film's problem. The film doesn't really try to differentiate a lot between these Lost Boys. Whereas I feel like a film like Hook did. I feel like Hook actually created some really unique and interesting characters within the Lost Boys. Not all of them. I'm not going to say every single Lost Boy that was featured in that film had a distinctive personality, but that you could have named a couple of them back in the day. Here, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know who those people are. Not much is really done with mermaids, or it's not a carbon copy of the animated film. They didn't just 100% just take that, but there's a lot in here. You know, there's the flying ship, taking the ship home, a lot of references. Second Star to the Right, Straight On Till Morning. You know, just a lot of things that you would expect in a Peter Pan film. But unfortunately, it never answers the question of, why did we make this? Why does this exist? Why did somebody give this a budget? Why is this so lacking in creativity? Why is the one thing that's interesting about this film something that's just backstory, that's just exposition? The most interesting thing about this film is exposition, which should not be. It should not be this thing that Hook brings up as being like sort of his reason for why he is the way that he is. And that's the best part of the damn film. And it's not even in the film. It's like they knew it was interesting enough to put it in the film and to describe it and to be like, oh, well, this will make Hook more of a complex character. Wait a minute, maybe we should make that the film. It's not even that. That's not even in here. So I just thought this was a waste. It's sort of like Pinocchio. Like, they didn't really do anything fresh or new or interesting with Pinocchio. Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio was just kind of like whatever. And then right after that, we saw Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and we saw what actually innovating and putting a new spin on a classic tale could do for something that is a tale as old as time. Here, I'm waiting for the film that comes along after this that shows me a brand new inspired version of Peter Pan. You know, I kind of need like a palate cleanser after this. Even though the world does not need another Peter Pan film, I kind of need something that's like a Tinkerbell backstory or something. I don't know, but nobody needed this. There's a reason this is only on Disney Plus. This would have bombed in theaters. This would have done absolutely terrible in theaters. I have no idea what this looks like visually with the CGI and everything, but I'm guessing Disney abandoned the quality level on CGI, and it looks fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, it looks fine, but not great. So I don't think they pumped extra money into this. I don't know. It's just disappointing. I couldn't recommend it, and I won't recommend it. Jude Law is fine in this, although I kind of read that he did the method the whole time and just stayed as Captain Hook, and I'm just like, come on, dude. Come on now. You don't need to stay as Captain Hook the whole film. This is not Shakespeare. This is the fact that I mean, it's almost admirable that he took the film this seriously, but at the same time, calm down, Jude. Calm down, fire your agent, get some new projects. This film does not help your career. It's disappointing. It doesn't care about representation, and it didn't even name the narrator. Like, the audio description is at the end. It's like, audio description provided by Deluxe. That's it. That's what you get. Yeah, it's very disappointing. And you have to sit through credits too. That just go nowhere. So no, nothing described in the credits, by the way. No names, no directors, no cast, no songs, nothing. Just dead credits. I didn't even get things at the end of the film. Like, usually we get this film was protected by the copyright of blah blah blah, Berne Convention, that whole thing. Not read. They didn't even want the narrators to read that. There's no American Humane Society, even though Nana's in the film, so there's clearly an animal. Unless they CGI'd a dog, which usually we don't CGI dogs. It's pretty easy to get a dog. So, yeah, none of that. They just, audio description by Deluxe. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna give Peter Pan and Wendy a C-. I kind of want to give it lower, but I do think that they introduced the possibility of a backstory, coupled with the fact that I can't fault the child actors. I think they're all fine. But I also would not put this in a grade that would sound like I was recommending it. If I was certified on Rotten Tomatoes, this would be a rotten for me. So, I don't know what other critics are doing. If there's a critic out there that liked this film, I would love to hear why. In the pantheon of Disney keeps shitting out versions of their own films, why would you like this? This is the most uninspired one of them all, I think. I think this one is possibly the biggest reason why they should stop doing this, is because of this. So, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I hope this helped a little bit and made things a little bit more clear. I hope you can check out my website, MacAMovieGuy.com. Subscribe to me here, please, but also you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at MacAMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it, and you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org, and it'll let you know who's narrating your favorite films and television series. I actually think this is Marsha Barnelli. I feel like I do know the narrator for this. So that's it. I will head back from Neverland soon and review another film, and see you guys on the other side.